Salutations and welcome to another episode of City of Heroes. I don't know. We gotta come up with an official show name if I do a lot of these. And it seems like I'm doing a lot of these. So if you got a great name for a show here, let me know. Today I want to make the case for Sentinels, something that comes up quite often in conversation I see with people I run with on the occasions like, hey Phil, why do you play Sentinels? And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, while I'm doing this, I'm going to play some in the background. We're going to do an Ouro flashback because that is what I like to do. This character's already level 50, but she can get incarnate experience and money and the such from doing these. Plus, it's just fun. So we're going to go ahead and have her turn into her superhero persona, the Unstoppable Firebug. There's a lot of smoke. Whew. Gotta clear out that smoke. Alright. Go ahead and get her hasten power up. And she's got quite a few toggles going on here, so we'll get all those guys turned on. You can see that really helps out my resistances. Well, I can't see because the logo's in the way, but there's my resistances right there. So we have quite a few of those guys going on. And today we're going to do the Redemption of Alexander the Great. This is one of those missions that doesn't take too long, and it gives you decent merits for the amount of time that it takes. It's not the best, but generally speaking, to get the best efficiency, if you're like just trying to farm for efficiency and get the most merits per hour, you're gonna need to do a longer story arc, and I don't want to do a longer story arc. And it's unusual that they have you start in the hospital. For a moment there, I was beginning to wonder if maybe I had died and didn't get the memo on it. But let's talk about the Sentinel class and why it is controversial. So the Sentinel, for those who don't know, if we take a look at their powers here, they use a blastery type of power. It's from the blaster power sets, though it is modified for Sentinels a bit. Instead of having like a snipe, they'll have a single target, fast but hard-hitting attack. And their AoEs don't quite do as much damage, but they recharge very relatively quickly compared to blasters. They also don't hit as many targets if you're dealing with really large groups, but since I play mostly small groups, that's rarely an issue, but we'll get to that in a minute. Their secondary power set is, instead of being control, is armor. So we have a lot of tankiness in here with bio armor is what I'm using on this character. I could go over in detail on this build if you want, but this is just a thematic build on this character. Certainly not very optimal. We got some flight, some toughness, because why not have some more tankiness, and some luck of the gambler in there for recharge. So when we talk about the Sentinel, when you talk to long-time Homecoming players, they will say, why would you ever play the Sentinel when you can play a blaster? The blaster does more damage, which is the primary role of these archetypes, and the Sentinel has defenses, but you know, when you get to the upper level and you get things like incarnate powers and set bonuses and stuff, man, they're both just as tanky as each other. You know, so why would you do that? Well, so I will give my argument back for that. Now, this is all my opinion, okay? I'm not trying to win a debate. I'm just giving you my perspective, which is definitely driven by the way I enjoy playing the game. So first off, understand that I enjoy playing solo content and small groups, right? I'm not looking to do the most DPS in an 8-man group. Though I think the Sentinel does have something to bring to the table there, and we'll talk about that. But when it comes to small content, let's talk about that. So there's a couple ways that the blaster does more damage than the Sentinel. Primarily, the big one I believe is the tier 9 power, which tends to be an AoE or a PB AoE. There is a limit to the amount of targets you can hit with an AoE, and that limit is much higher on a blaster than it is in a Sentinel. I believe it's something like 10 or 18. 10 on the Sentinel, 18 on the blaster. I could be wrong about that, but that's, from what I recall reading, that was kind of the difference there. The other thing about the tier 9 power is it simply just does more damage on a blaster. Just hands down does significantly more damage. Something like 60% more, 100% more, something like that. It's pretty noticeable. However, there is a little bit of an offset. The Sentinel's tier 9 power recharges like 60% faster. So you get to do your big booming as often. In small content, the limit doesn't come into play very often. It's not often that I'm running into packs of mobs of more than 10. So that doesn't bother me a whole lot. I definitely notice, how much damage it does, but I like the fact that my Sentinels pops up more often, so I'm able to get that big booming dealy out more often. That, to me, is a lot of fun. And now the game wants me to hunt 35 family, which I have here on the map. I don't know if you can see it in the corner. It's very dim and kind of hard to see here. But I believe I'm going to have to go back to Independence Port for that. So for example here, speaking of tier 9 powers, I need to blow up a whole bunch of these guys. So we'll just kind of jump in the middle of them and give them a little taste of the old big boom there. And we killed 2. This one just somehow managed to dodge out of the way. And it kills those whites pretty quickly, right? But with a blaster, but it just barely killed that one, that one guy. With a blaster, usually wipe out yellows, no problems. Like lieutenants, I should say, no problem with the Sentinel. But look at how fast it's already recharged, right? Because I have recharge modifications and stuff like that. So it comes by pretty quick, and the guy wants getting away, so we won't let that happen. But yeah, so there is definitely a bit of a damage disparity. Your blaster also has the snipe attack. What you have on this character instead is Blazing Blast, which I'm not sure why it's grayed out unless I'm Exemplar too low to use it. Maybe I picked it up later in my career. That's kind of odd. Usually pick up those pretty early, but it is grayed out there. Anyways, so to me the damage difference between them when doing solo and small groups really isn't that huge. You definitely see it on a couple of powers, but there's other powers where the damage feels pretty darn close to me. Now blasters do have an inherent power that their damage increases the more that they do, but it isn't that huge of a damage bump with that. Now what you have on your Sentinel here is something called vulnerability. I'm going to put on this guy right here, and it lowers all of his resistances by 15%, just a flat reduction. No chance for him to resist that or whatever have you, and that'll make him easier to hurt. Now in solo play, it doesn't make a huge difference, but I doubt that the blasters does either. But this brings me back to the team play argument. So with team play, when it comes to big groups, your blaster is definitely going to shine. But when it comes to bosses, your Sentinel brings that vulnerability thing to the table, and that increases everybody's damage in the party. It's very powerful, and it's going to stack with other debuffs or whatever that other party members are bringing, as long as they're not the same. As long as it's not the same Sentinel power. The Sentinel powers do not stack on top of each other. So the vulnerability power. So consider that if you will, but it does mean that the Sentinel does put out some pretty good damage and bring something to the table in a group setting, helping to take down bosses even faster. Now, so let's talk about the survivability. So the argument is that at high levels, your blaster has just as good defenses. I'm not sure I necessarily buy that. Now, I'm not a high-end build master, but I have built both blasters and Sentinels, and there still is a difference to me at high levels because of the power sets that the Sentinels have. Your blaster has to get a lot more set bonuses and take power pools and stuff like that to kind of get there. And they probably could. I'm going to trust the experts on this and just say, for sake of argument, maybe they can. But that does take quite a bit of investment in high-end gear that I can do easier and faster on the Sentinel. And most importantly, for the leveling experience, right? And doing lower level missions. Because I get those Sentinels' defensive powers pretty early, I can enjoy a easier leveling experience where I'm not dying every time I do a bad pull or something like I do. I was playing yesterday with some friends, and we were doing a tough mission, and I was getting ganked a few times. I died 3 times. That's the life of a blaster. I hardly ever die on my Sentinel. It's pretty rare. I mean, they're just much tankier. Now, if you're playing Ouroboros like I do in the flashbacks a lot and stuff like that, you have to kind of keep in mind that when you exemplar down, you don't have your high level powers, and for a lot of the blaster builds, their defensive powers don't come up into higher levels anyways. So those could get exemplared out, and all of a sudden you're back to being squishy again. Now, I know a lot of people out there, when they play a blaster or whatever have you, they only do level 50 content, so this might be a moot point for them, but this is how I play the game. So I personally enjoy not dying every 5 seconds. To me, that's a bonus. I run into, these are yellows and oranges right here you see me fighting, and I don't even break a sweat. I haven't used any of my, I have heals here. I've got drains, and I've hardly had to use them. Now, to be fair, I'm probably still getting some set bonuses and stuff that you normally wouldn't have at this level. But I did level this character up from scratch, and I just didn't have very many deaths. I do enjoy my blaster. They are the typical glass cannon. Now, another reason, and another case for the argument for Sentinel, is the Iron Man fantasy, right? If you ever want to play Iron Man or a character like Iron Man or anything along those lines, you can really only do that with the Sentinel. You want to play somebody who's got some good ranged attacks, but is also pretty darn tanky. You need a Sentinel for that. The blasters just can't do it. And the funny thing was, like, the first character I wanted to play when I played City of Heroes originally was somebody like Iron Man. And I just couldn't pull it off with the blaster. I kept dying so much, I didn't feel like an Iron Man at all. What's another thing that's kind of interesting to me is that a lot of blaster powers are point blank, particularly their tier 9s, and I don't know why. So I'm playing Fire here. The tier 9 power, your big boom, is Inferno. And Inferno requires that you literally be right up on the enemies. If those enemies survive your Inferno for whatever reason, they're going to turn around and hit you. And if you're playing a squishy, that's a lot harder to survive. It just is. So that's why, again, I tend to play Sentinels. It's just, if I go in there with my tier 9, they survive, not a big whoop. Not a big whoop. So overall, I'll say if you're playing a lot in groups, particularly big groups, then I would say, sure, go with the blaster all the way. If you're doing a lot of soloing in small group, consider the Sentinel. Another thing I've noticed, like in small groups and whatnot, sometimes nobody wants to play the tank. Nobody wants to grab the aggro. And if you got a bunch of squishy classes in the group, that can definitely end in some unfortunate deaths. Sentinel can definitely handle being a tank in a situation like that through most of the content. Not the super high-end content, you need a true tank for that. But I have tanked plenty of times as Sentinel for things like newspaper missions and doing Ouroboros and things like that, and even Task Force on the occasion. I have a Sentinel build which has taunt and has plenty of tankiness and healing and still does good damage. So yeah, you can do that. You can do that with a Sentinel. Can't do that with a blaster. I like being able to fill 2 different roles. That has definitely come into handy for me at times. So what do you think? What is your take on the blaster versus Sentinel discussion? Have I missed anything? I'm trying to think there if I missed anything big. But I want to say right here, at the end, I like both classes, and I have numerous characters of both classes. In fact, the character I've probably been playing the most right now has actually been a blaster. And while that character is not tanky at all, I use devices as my control, and I'm able to basically be a spy master, go in there and just really be all sneaky and stuff. And I'm having so much fun with that, I will probably do a video on that one in the not too distant future. So in the meantime, that's all I have about this subject. Tell me what you think in the comments below. And yeah, now that I'm finishing up, now I'm gonna face these two reds, and I'm gonna have a little bit more reason to show off the tankiness of the Sentinel here, because I actually do have to blow in some cooldowns here. And we'll activate some extra defenses just in case. But you can see, got through that no problem. Now, being that those are reds, they were pretty hard to kill too fast. And I do think my blaster would have been dead right there, no problem, for the Sentinel. I haven't even used the inspirations because I got those. But anywho, what do you think about this bait? Put your comments below and let me know what you think. For the rest of the video here, I'm going to finish up this story arc, which I don't think has too much longer on it. And we'll see how well I do with these guys, because this does appear to be a tougher mission. One thing that we have noticed with the Ouroboros missions is that they can greatly vary in difficulty. You can enter one of them and face a bunch of greens and blues, and mind you, this is exemplar down, so it's picking my level for me. And then you enter another mission and you end up with a bunch of yellows, oranges, and reds. So that's always super fun. Let's start using some of these inspirations and try to get through this just a titch faster and try to play a little bit more efficiently. I have a lot of heals. I probably don't need that many heals, but there we go. I also rarely run out of endurance. Can definitely keep that break free for a rainy day. Alright, let's see if we can find somebody else to beat up on over here. He's all by himself, all lonely. Gotta love his body. Looks like it's being stuck in an electric socket. I'm not even sure what that's from, since my powers are fire, not electric, but I guess I won't look to give Torus in the mouth. It could be one of my set bonuses kicking in there. Yeah, one thing about faster Tier 9 charges is that I do it on the drop of a hat. Surrounded by only 2 enemies below the Tier 9. That thing's going to recharge in 20 seconds anyways. So I think the fastest I've gotten my blaster is a 50-second recharge, maybe 50 or 60. So you're a little bit more cautious with burning those big cooldowns on that. One thing about fire that I'm not the biggest fan of is the tier 7 or 8 is Rain of Fire, I believe. And it's a DOT AoE, but it also makes them run away in fear, which is good for reducing your incoming damage, but also makes them a bit of a pain in the ass when you want to hunt them down. You're doing a kill all and you just want to hunt them down and they're running like chickens. But if you feel like you're taking too much damage, you can always throw that bad boy in there and he goes. He's running away like the chicken he is. I mean, it does keep you from getting too many people hitting on you, I suppose. Because while you're a Sentinel, you're still not a tank, right? I think someone told me the defenses are on par with a Scrapper, not a tank. So, kind of keep that in mind. Maybe you're a Scrapper defense. Not quite up to Brute. But I do like fire. I do like watching things burn, even if they run away occasionally from me, which is most rude. I like how this guy's up here. Come down here where I can shoot you. Now, one thing I don't talk about a whole lot is, is the defensive power sets. A lot of them are pretty passive, right? You turn them on, they drain your endurance, but they protect you, and then you forget about it. But one of the nice things I think about this BIOS is it does have a little interactivity You can pick between offense, defense, and endurance modification and whatever have you. You can see here for offense, for example, it's a -7 resistance to all damage on self. That's offensive. -7 resistance. That's not very helpful, is it? Ah. I forget exactly what this power does, but it increases your offense somehow. I mean, it's called offensive. I think that the power description would be just a titch better there. And there's the big boom right there, which just took out a nice chunk of all their life. Oh, one thing about the tier 9 that I did fail to mention during the main portion of the video is that the Sentinels tier 9 also a lot of times has smaller AoE as well, just the sheer size. Again, never been much of an issue given the fact that, you know, they tend to crowd around you like this. And again, if you're getting too much heat, you just go ahead and do that guy right there and they'll start running away. But I usually do it after I do my big AoE attacks. And then while they're running away, we go ahead and finish those guys off. Being that you're running fire, you got plenty of ranged attacks. Ooh, a red. We'll definitely give him the vulnerability insignia there. Breathe a little fire on him, he'll like that. Yeah. And you see my regular fireball here just recharges rather quickly as well. And the vulnerability recharges like every 5 seconds, so it's very useful. You can see I hardly ever run out of endurance with this build as well. Doesn't happen too often. Oh, let's go ahead and give myself a little breathing space with that. And with that. Yeah, these guys are a bunch of oranges and reds are being a little bit onery here. Not going down as easy. But Rain of Fire kind of saving my bacon. Bacon there. But plenty of hit points. This one, I think it's Rebuild DNA or one of these guys right here gives you extra maximum hit points there. That's the gray bar. So plenty. Oh, we definitely have the party level here, no doubt. But just go in there and explode and just take off a good chunk of most of their hit points, killed a couple. It's all good. It's all good in the hood. The other thing about Sentinels is they have some pretty good mez resistance. I don't get mezzed a lot as a Sentinel. I don't know if that's inherent or just from the protection power sets or whatever the deal is, but I don't get slept and held as much as I do with my other classes. Yeah, that's how you take care of bad guys. Just gonna use up some of these healies anyways. You can die now. Wow, he's just holding on there for dear life. Wow. Say hi to his friend here. Throw a little vulnerability on him and just hit him with the major single target damage spells. The fire breath spells, these cone spells always seem to be like a straight line rather than a true cone to me. But maybe that's just me. Breathe on them. Breathe. turn this on Do Not Disturb so we don't get Discord sounds in the background here as I try to finish these last few guys off. There's a lot of guys. This is like a kill all everybody in the neighborhood type of deal. And well, I tell you what, I think I might have, yeah, I got this set for 2 players. That's why I've got so many bad guys in here. Oh, they did enjoy that. Oh, you guys are cute. Got a few axe swings in on me there. You gotta hate it when you miss, though. Missing never feels good. Try to keep that accuracy high. We call it the accuracy tax. Kind of breathe all over this guy here. There was like a big boss at the end of this. He might be purple. That would be exciting. Breathe, and that gets some good damage over time when you breathe on him like that. He'll probably just burn off to death if I just let him. Okay, not gonna lie, I want to help him along. Oh gosh, so many. But hey, that's what we're here for. The animation on Fire Breath tends to drag just a titch. These guys hiding in between the crates, bunch of cowards. Yeah, you can't hide from the unstoppable firebug. Ooh. Hello, guy. What you doing hiding back there? Let's help you out with one of these. And one of these. And one of these. It is kind of interesting that the idea here is to rain of fire and they want to run out of it because they don't want to burn to death, but that doesn't stop them from, you know, standing next to me with all my other fire abilities. Yeah, and you can see the fire blast is already back up again. I think we got the last few up here. When you start seeing red arrows on the map, it usually means you're down to last few, but definitely have had a really good time killing all of these guys here. So let's give them the send-off they deserve. Shabam! And that's all they wrote on that guy right there. Let's see what else is left in this mission. I thought that might have been it, but that may not be it. I gotta go back to the contact in Talos Island. Talos Island. Well, let's head back over there. Head back to Talos and fly back to our contact. As I mentioned in another video, when I do fly, I like to double slot it for that extra speed. Sometimes I'll even put the third slot in there for just a little bit more speed. But I do like to fly fast. And then with turbo flying, you can really pick up the speed. 97 miles an hour, oh my gosh. So blinding fast. I love flying. Fly underneath the bridge, fly on top of the bridge. Hello? What you doing? And there we go. Okay, now we're done. So, quick little Ouroboros there. 12 reward merits. Took me 39 minutes. I did actually waste about 10 minutes earlier. I was trying to figure something out on the computer, so that inflated the time a bit. So this is about 24 merits per hour with this guy here. It's a fun little thing to do, as long as you know where to do the hunts for the family members, which is in Independence Independence area, Independence Port around the south and the west side. You find plenty of family members there to hunt. And this definitely goes faster if you have 2 people to do those hunts. You can definitely get through that quickly. But hopefully you enjoyed this video and my discussion Sentinel. Let me know what you think there below. And I hope that you guys have a great day. I'll catch you next time. I'm going to come up with some cool outro. Up and away or something. But have a good one.